Channel 5.
Israel is essentially doing the work that the Western world should be doing.
Deadly retribution is raining down on Gaza. Israel says it's targeting Hamas,
Which is resolving terrorism in the Middle East. There is no other way. There's no other way. We've tried everything, giving them money, opening the borders, having conversations, singing for peace, teaching about peace. Listen, I'm a Jew. I live in the States, right? But I'm very aware that the Holocaust was just around the corner. And another Holocaust is happening right now.
See, I used to get punched in the face, but now I do the punching. My family heated because most of them died in the ovens. Hamas is not the wave, you know what I'm saying?
2 years old. The things that's been going on lately, you just have to separate it from the Israeli-Palestinian situation. It's a different story. I personally know 4 people that have been taken out of their homes.
And they killed, and they kidnapped, and they tortured.
I'm not trying to justify anything with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but this is way above this. This is terror. My thoughts about Hamas is that it's an equal to ISIS.
They're interested in getting rid of Israel and all the Jews around the world. And that's in their constitution.
I don't feel it supports the Palestinians. If he would care, he would never launch this attack.
Rockets were fired into Israel as gunmen infiltrated several border towns and bases.
they swarmed into Israel by land, sea, and even on paragliders. And then they went on a rampage, slaughtering civilians in the street.
It's a horrible situation, yeah. And it was the worst day in Jewish history in terms of deaths since the Holocaust. 1,300 people died.
So we're here to give each other support that we need right now, because when you're sitting alone in your house and seeing these things, you just want to fall apart. And so that's why we're here today, to bring each other up and to lean on our community.
And I have friends that were kidnapped in the party, a rave that was made for peace, a peace festival. It was the most difficult week I've ever had in my life. I cried many times, and I'm traumatized because it felt like we're not safe in our own our hometown.
Guys, we watched this, but instead it was like
this kind of attack?
the other.
Say if Mexico, God forbid, would attack America,
And slice up everyone in Texas and New Mexico, what do you think America would do?
America would.
Well, that never happened. Guys, I don't think that's a fair comparison. The fuck? Guys, I don't think that's a fair comparison. I mean, they just fucking send 1:130 and just fucking go full blasto mode.
Not
What
leave
the
one
fuck?
stone unturned until they get all the terrorists.
They're expecting the outcome. They're expecting the attack back that Israel is doing at the moment.
Israel has formally declared war after that unprecedented terror attack from Hamas.
That the death toll in Gaza has surpassed 3,700.
Do you have family in Palestine?
Yes, I do.
How are they doing?
We lost 14 relatives in the bombardment, and currently I haven't heard from relatives in about 12 hours. So
Sorry to hear that.
thank you.
The thing about Gaza, which your audience should know,
Sorry.
is about half the
I
population.
don't want to smile.
is under the age
The
of
way
18.
they captured the energy of that video was.
Incursion into Gaza is going to be killing a lot of children.
Palestinians digging through the rubble to rescue these children trapped in their beds after an Israeli strike.
And Israel has had a history of doing that.
Israel has had a history of doing it, but what has happened in the past is probably going to be done in spades now.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the goal that Israel has now is to destroy Hamas. And they also, of course, are trying to free the hostages that Hamas took last week. And it's going to be impossible for them to do that without civilian casualties.
I see that babies in Gaza die. I'm sad about that, but I cannot, if it's their babies or our babies, it's not about choosing, it's just getting rid of Hamas so their babies can live in peace too.
We are Jews! We couldn't be prouder! And if you can't hear us, we'll shout a little louder!
According to the protesters, their primary demand was the return of the 205 hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza, many of whom are babies.
Bring the babies home!
Naturally, I wanted to see if I could get in touch with one of these hostages. But to be honest, that felt damn near impossible. Then, later that day, I got a call from Kosha Dills.
Too much of this world being negative.
The Israeli freestyle rapper I met at the Free Palestine rally.
Hamas. I'll turn him into hummus.
He told me he had a friend named Alana Zaitchik who had 6 family members kidnapped by Hamas militants. They were snatched from their homes and driven across the border back into Gaza.
I'm gonna do something right back,
I wanted
chat.
to talk to her,
Guys,
and I agreed. So
guys, this is where I draw the line, chat. I'm like, I'm gonna go juice up. You guys can watch this, chat. Give me a minute. Be right back.
Set up an interview for the next morning.
Andrew, could you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Please watch this video. It got 20 million views in only 7 days. It will explain everything you ever question about. It will be
There's an echo on my end.
Yeah. You're recording me this way too? Yes, I see. It's a 360 almost. I guess it's like a 180.
Exactly, 360 or 180, depending on how you look at it.
Hi, Andrew.
Killed outright by the Nazis. Something had to be done. We went ahead and done it. We set up the Israeli government in Palestine, moved some of the Arabs out.
About 720,000 of them were forced to flee for a variety of reasons, including terror, including ethnic cleansing, including the fact that it's a smart thing to do to leave a war zone. And, you know, the Palestinian question fell off the face of the earth, actually. Now, it was the Palestine Liberation Organization, starting in the late 1960s, that brought the Palestine issue back again.
The bottom line is,
maybe your audience remembers some
people
of the
are without hair.
It was called television terrorism, where there would be hijacking of airplanes. In one case, they blew up these airplanes after television crews arrived. Not with anybody on board. They'd cleaned them out first. But the idea was to make a spectacular
I'm gonna order some coffee too.
Series of raids that would keep the Palestine issue alive, and it worked. I mean, who talks about Kurdish nationalism now, but we all talk about Palestinian nationalism?
Why is that?
Well, because the Kurds weren't able to keep their question alive, you know, and the Palestinians were able to do that. And sometimes it took spectacular acts of terrorism. Sometimes they were bloody, sometimes they weren't. But, you know, in all cases, they kept the question alive, which is why I think what Hamas has done recently is the same thing, fits into the same pattern. Keep the question alive, make sure there's no compromise.
I do want to mention one thing, sorry, before we continue, I just want to mention one thing, is that it's a little weird to sit down and talk about the history of Israel when barbarians come and literally slaughter Jewish children, Jewish mothers, Jewish fathers, Jewish grandparents, and literally just slaughter them. It's not a time to look at the history, who's right, who's wrong, and let's say for whatever reason, you know, they had a claim or had something or whatever it is. That doesn't ever allow for what happened on Saturday or Sunday.
6:30 a.m. Saturday morning, and they came in and slaughtered, only from the Peace Festival, more than 260 people.
That was their crime, going to a music festival in the woods. And Hamas came in after they threw in those hand grenades, and they sprayed machine gun fire on all these young, happy, beautiful people who were just there to have a good time, listening to music in the woods.
And then I hear Free Palestine.
You're killing each other. So don't talk about you.
At some point during this rally, I realized that almost nobody in attendance was quite sure exactly what the Palestinians want. For many of them, it was simply the murder of all Jews.
They're interested in getting rid of Israel and all the Jews around the world.
And most of the people who are at those rallies are people who actually believe in the destruction of every Jewish person. It's not that they don't want us to have the land of Israel. They don't want us to have any land. They want us in the ocean.
Or to establish a global caliphate like ISIS wanted to.
They want to have
a global caliphate.
What? The Bangistan? Is that real?
Like ISIS wanted to.
They want to have caliphates in the entire world, so it's coming our way.
It all reminded me of America after 9/11. I was obviously 3 years old, so I don't remember that much, but I do remember asking, why did this happen? I was always given the same answer. Al-Qaeda hates us because we're free.
Osama bin Laden is just representative of networks of people who absolutely have made their cause to defeat the freedoms that we understand.
However, it's these sort of oversimplifications that serve to obscure the true reasoning behind many of these international conflicts. The day before I attended the pro-Israel rally, I attended a Free Palestine rally and was able to get more clarity on what Palestinians mean when they say Free Palestine. At the rally, I learned about the blockade.
For 16 years, the Israeli government has suffocated Palestinians in Gaza under a draconian air, sea, and land military blockade, imprisoning and starving over 2 million people and denying them medical aid.
Gaza's been under blockade for 16 years. No one can leave.
They've been denied the basic human rights of just living a life along with having food, water, fuel, electricity.
And that's what we're focusing on here today.
Like I said, 16 years of siege, 16 years of being held hostage in an open-air prison.
I also learned about the intense travel blockade and sundown laws Israel has placed on Gazans.
If you're living in Gaza, are you allowed to travel freely throughout Israel?
No.
Can you just go for like the weekend?
No. It's not a free movement to travelers. So in order to be able to cross from one to another, you have to go through checkpoints. And Palestinians have to be back in the territories at nightfall.
And that curfew is imposed by Israel?
By Israel.
I think that a lot of people, when they say, Free Palestine, a lot of them are referring to the economic sanctions and the inability for people to travel out of Gaza. What do you think about that being lifted?
Yeah, so, the Gazan border was open on a daily basis into Israel. So people of Gaza were allowed to go into Israel. They would earn money in Israel. They would work there. On the contrary, the Gazan border into Egypt has been closed for years.
Right.
Ask yourself why.
Why?
Well, that's a question for the Israelis, actually. The Israelis think that, the Palestinians are dangerous. There was a second uprising that took place in 2000 against Israeli occupation, and it was extraordinarily bloody. It was extraordinarily bloody. And there were things like suicide bombings, bus bombings, Palestinian militants walking into restaurants and killing people. I mean, that sort of stuff as well.
Like, we're used to terror attacks. Growing up in Jerusalem, we had buses explode, we had people stab people, and our whole life has been around this conflict.
In a way, Israeli society has never recovered from that. The peace process has never recovered from that.
Just from the trauma of, these terror attacks?
Right, by what took place during what was called the Second Intifada.
And then now...
Guys, I told you. Guys, I'm literally doing the fourth strat. I'm not reacting. I'm watching.
The Gazan border was opened up forcefully by Hamas. And we all saw what happened. So again, the experiment has been done. We're not willing to do additional experiments. I think if you had any doubt that this this needs to...
Guys, I'm gonna say it. It's been a long time now. I've been watching this video. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna fucking say it. I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm gonna say it. What the fuck is up with her nostril fucking salts? Like, what the fuck is that? Guys, what is it? It could be anything. What the fuck is it?
Continue. We need to open up our borders and
Is it
support
just dry skin?
the Gazans. We've tried to do that as
Does it not tickle?
as a sovereign country that wants peace. At this present time, would you even think this is something that should be done? Would you even think that this should be our responsibility?
You see that with the terrorists that were killed in Israel, they were able to go through their stuff. And you see some of them had literally licenses to work in Israel. These are people who you might have actually smiled at them in the store. You might have thanked them. You might have even given them a tip for their hard work. And you thought that they were so appreciative of what you did for them. And then a day later, they came and killed your family.
But at this point, I don't think Israel is in a position to even do any more of that. We really have to defend ourselves.
They don't care about Americans either. I would say that most of the people who are parading with them, they wouldn't last a day in Gaza.
I think it's really interesting to be pro-feminism, to be Black Lives Matter, to be march with Ukraine, and to march for gay rights and trans rights, and realize that not a lot of us would have those rights in Gaza. And that's not because of Gaza. It's not because of the great Palestinian people that make that place. It's because of Hamas. The Hamas is a terrorist organization that runs that. Palestinian people didn't do it. Hamas did, and they've radicalized their whole spot.
I feel like anybody who's marching and saying it's only because of humanitarian or whatever, Are they marching today for the 200 plus hostages that are stuck in Gaza? Who knows what's happening? Who knows if they're even alive now? Who knows what's happening? So I want you to march for those. Let's get those 200, and then let's talk about the people holding those 200.
On Friday the 13th, I woke up to the news that the IDF had contacted my family in Israel to inform them that my family is indeed in Gaza and alive. We have not one shred of information about their conditions in Gaza.
Mm-hmm. Is there any sort of negotiation going on? Like, is there terms that that Hamas is providing for the release of hostages?
I've heard that they want something like 6,000 prisoners to be released. Hamas prisoners, specifically, which mind you are terrorists. Gilad Shalit, do you know who he was?
If they're filming her in the other room, and he's on the phone with her,
to all of DGG, do not forget 15.2.
Why doesn't he just talk to you on the camera?
We will reach 16.2, 17.2
Not
and
familiar.
beyond.
Gilad Shalit was a soldier that Hamas kidnapped. They've done this many times. It's never been at this volume of people.
Guys, she's right there.
Are there terms that that Hamas is providing for the release of hostages?
I've heard that
Guys,
they want something like 6,000 prisoners to be released. Hamas prisoners, specifically, which mind you are terrorists. Gilad Shalit, do you know who he was?
Not familiar.
Gilad Shalit was a soldier that Hamas kidnapped. They've done this many times. It's never been at this volume of people. And it took the Israeli government 5.5 years to negotiate with Hamas to get him back, and that was typically what they wanted in the past is prisoner release.
How close is the kibbutz to Gaza?
I don't know in proximity, but extremely close. Very close to the Gaza border. Like, so much so that this has always been a concern. In their kibbutz, right, in their area, the children's playgrounds are secured for potential rocket attacks.
So, most of your life you've kind of been aware of this tension going on the border between Gaza and Israel.
guys, what is a 1-5?
Well, let's be real. Hold on. Gaza, the way it is now, is not since 2005.
Do you feel like the closing of the border in 2005 kind of led to escalating tensions?
I don't want to talk about the politics of it right now. I can't. I'm grieving, right? Like, I have a very opinionated voice. You might hear that, but I'm a person who loves my family, who lives for my family, and that's all I'm thinking about right now. Yes, there is a time and place for us to have these discussions, but we've been having these discussions for how many years, and where has it gotten us? Nowhere. So maybe what we've done before isn't working, and we should do something differently now.
Channel 5 live worldwide, Hollywood and Vine. Fuck the authority, Channel 5 News. Channel 55. We don't fuck with clusters, and 5 is the best number.
What's up, guys? Thanks so much for watching this video. If you've made it to this point, I have great news for you. You're in the 95th percentile of attention span for Americans aged 25 to 32. So it's good to be here with you guys. I'd like to remind you that Channel 5 is and will always be completely independent and powered directly by your contributions on our Patreon. It also gives you access to a pretty big catalog of exclusive, unreleased.
They should just, well, I mean, I don't think he's leaving jail again.
Anyway.